Welcome to another episode of the Founder to Founder podcast. My name is Aaron Spivak, born and raised in Toronto, Ontario, here in Miami, and I've built multiple 7, 8, and 9-figure brands and recently just had the third largest D2C transaction in Canadian history. But today is not about me, because today you get to listen to another incredible story of the founder behind the founder, and we get to dive deep into what it takes to build something incredible. It's not always the tips and tricks, it's how you go about your life. So join us for another incredible podcast at the Founder to Founder. Mr. Lior Ohayon.
On, sir.
Welcome. This is the first podcast you've done since 2020 when we were in your living room, right?
We tried another podcast that has one hidden episode that maybe we'll reveal in 10 years from now when we're past our legal NDAs that we signed.
Well, listen, for those of you who don't know or do know, Lior and I started Hush back in 2018, which we're 100% going to get into. But before we get into that, I want you to tell the audience, because Ned spent all night trying to find deep research on you. And aside from a few videos of you flexing on your balcony, there wasn't much. And I think there's intention behind that. But I think what makes this story so special is that it all started at a relatively young age for you when you dropped out of school. And I dropped out of school years after you, and it definitely wasn't cool when I did it. And for you, with your background, where you come from, that's a big step. And I want you to touch on that. What led to Lior taking that big step?
Dropping out.
You were a good student. You're not like me. I'm a bad student. You're a good student. How does that happen?
Let me think. I think I had my first job working at a software company. And
how old were you?
I must have been 18 or 19. It was small. It was just like me and the boss in the office. And then I ended up getting him to hire my two friends who now run your Facebook ads. So all of us sort of ended up in the same place and left the same place. But I think just getting a little bit of taste of like the real world and realizing, wait, if this is a job and I'm making money, then why do I need to keep studying to make money? You can say, oh, you'll earn more, but I knew that what I was studying was not going to be anything that made me significantly more. And at the same time, I started to dabble with some online stuff. Like my first business was selling ebooks on the Kindle marketplace, like the Kindle e-readers. So basically on Amazon. And I was earning a few $100s a month. And
what do you mean selling ebooks? You wrote the book?
I wrote the book, meaning you get a ghostwriter to write it. I mean, these are small books. These are like 30, 40 pages.
So you went on, this is before GBT. You went on Upwork?
With ChatGPT, that would have been so good now.
Yeah.
How did you think about that? Yeah, you're on Upwork, paid a real writer to write on a topic that hopefully they knew about or researched about. And these are like something that could be, 5 blog posts long, like how to make cake pop recipes and, how to take cold showers before cold showers were a thing. And it was doing okay. Like for me at the time, I was like, oh, almost $1,000 a month in extra revenue. I don't need school. And so I just walked into my boss's office one day and said, I'm dropping out of school. I'm also quitting. And also moved out of my parents' house all in the same month. So it was quite a big jump, but I just needed.
Where did that come from? Like what inspired you? 19, 20 years old? What inspires you to be like, I'm going to drop everything because I made $1,000 a month selling ebooks?
It was when I look back, it was pretty dumb. Only because I did it on a whim. I did it knowing that this was like when courses first started. So I believed so much in some of what these people were selling that I'm like, I'm going to be a millionaire.
You're telling me these people online that like Ty Lopez.
Yeah.
You see these books?
In fact, it was such early days that I thought the course was in person. So I told my boss that I'm quitting because I need to go to, I forget what it was. It was like Utah or something, to go on this like retreat because it's 2 weeks long, whatever. He's like, what are you doing? I'm going to learn how to build a software company. That's what this was. And he's like, okay, whatever, I respect your decision. And like a week later, I find out it's an online course. You don't actually have to go anywhere. But I was like, whatever, I already quit. And then it was just a matter of like, I was living my own. And it was just literally me on my computer, how to make money online. And I just would come across like course after course and people popping up and teaching you different things. And that's when I discovered search engine optimization and SEO. And I just started selling it, started doing it and selling it and pitching it to clients. And that's how I survived.
So you see there's an opportunity to sell SEO after you Google how to make money. And where were you living? You moved out?
Yeah, I was living in a basement apartment.
You're living in a basement apartment in Thornhill, probably. Yeah, in Thornhill. And what were your parents thinking of their, super smart, highly educated child who decided to sell ebooks and drop out of school?
I think they didn't really understand, but they were also supportive. Because the year before, I told my mom that I'm going to drop out and start a hot dog stand on campus. And she's like, okay. Yeah. So it wasn't like, no, you're not. It was more like, is that going to work? And I was like, yeah, I did the math. I'm pretty sure if I sell 100 hot dogs a day, I'm going to be good. So I already had like this drive because the school is so boring. And I just had to do something else. Did
you just want to work for yourself, or you deeply down, just wanted to make a lot of money?
I didn't want to be in school. And I knew that I needed to survive in order to live my own life.
Right.
And that means taking control and making money.
So you're in this basement. You figured out that people need SEO. You're taking courses on how to sell it. Where did you find your first clients?
First clients I found on Upwork. Back in the day, it was called something else called Elance.
You're telling that I could have hired Lior on Upwork?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
For how much? What was the hourly rate?
So I actually created this method of doing that. So people weren't really teaching you how to sell it. They were only teaching you how to do it. So I thought, how am I going to get clients? Sure, Upwork and Fiverr, I think, was just starting at the time. But my whole thing was, don't be one of those people that are selling it for $200-$300 a month. How am I going to get $1,000, $2,000 client, right? You need to really show them the value. So I created this method, which now is just really sales, which is a way to stand out, and is just stand out as a freelancer, but get them on the call. And this was before real sales training started to pop up online in terms of courses, but it was get them on the phone and explain to them that you're providing more than just a few links to a website and some keyword stuff. It's show them that you're providing value and they'll pay you a lot more. And so I made my own course about that. And that's when I first started.
So you sold a course on how to sell SEO.
How to sell it,
you stopped selling SEO and sold how to sell SEO.
I was still selling, but I stopped just consuming all these courses, and I figured it out.
And then you started to make money.
Yeah.
What was the amount at 21, 22? Because right now you're 21, 22, where you're like, oh, wait a second, I'm rich.
Yeah, my mom came to visit me, and I remember
Were you still in the basement?
Yeah, I was in the basement. She picked me out because I didn't even have a car. I'm I made $15,000 yesterday.
50?
15.
15.
Yeah, selling this course that I found another guy online. He was willing to partner, and he would promote it to his audience. And she's like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "Yeah, that's this is what I'm doing now." And so to me back then, that was that changed my life. I could pay rent for a year.
Wow. And then you're like, I need to scale this.
Yeah, but it wasn't more about as much about the courses, because I still believed in SEO. That was more the recurring thing. The course to me was one-off. And so I just kept selling to clients.
At what point did you become Lior, the SEO traveling guy?
It was a few months after that. So I have money in the bank, 15
So wait, you're 21 years old now?
I think I was 20.
2021, you're making on launches $15K, more money than you've ever made before. And now you're like, I'm going to rebrand?
It wasn't really a rebrand. It was more, I saw an ad for some travel, program. Let's go to Thailand, you volunteer. I was like, okay.
That's the one thing about you. Ads, if you're listening to this, ads work on Lior. Since the day I've met him, if he sees something on his phone, if there's a shop now link, it's on the way.
Listen, it's in some regards, it's changed my life.
Yeah, 100%. You believe in it because you also consume it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I saw this trip to Thailand, decided to sign up. It was an amazing experience. Before I even left, like in the airport in Thailand, I already signed up for the next one, which is in Nicaragua. And I just led to like almost a year of traveling on and off. The traveling SEO guy is the brand from the next business, which was Scope Leads.
Right.
And I basically saw that if people know how to do SEO, there's so much knowledge around how to do SEO, but I taught people how to sell SEO through this sort of like freelance method. Maybe what people really need is to learn how to sell. And so instead of just like doing a course on how to sell, I said, let's do a software. Because I think the only thing that wasn't automated at the time was sales or prospecting. And so I created the first local B2B outreach tool that found what was wrong with prospects' websites and allowed you to automatically reach out to all of them in one shot and with a customized email, follow-ups and all that stuff. And so the story I had to tell there was, I am the traveling SEO guy. Look at the life you can live with clients, buy my software and it'll work out. And the whole other story of how that went.
Right. Well, you became the guy that you were originally buying from. And who was the catalyst in teaching you how to build this? Because I know you love to learn. You're always trying to find the next guy that could teach you something. Who was pivotal in that journey? Because you didn't just come up with this.
I did.
Wow.
I did. It was all similar to like what we did with Hush. We didn't have mentors. We just figured it out.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that.
It really was. I think a few of my buddies, including the one that helped me sell the first course.
Yeah.
He went into software, and I saw everyone in this internet marketing space is getting into software, SaaS. I said, I want my own. Like, this is a better business model than trying to like sell clients and they leave and whatever. So I really just thought, what could be a software? What would people need automated? And there's so many automations for building links and doing SEO, keyword stuff and website stuff, but there wasn't anything to sell. And so that idea came about, and it was just a matter of looking at what other people were doing and just figuring it out on my own.
When I met you for the first time, I remember you telling me a story that was really funny. You said, this business I'm in, clients pay $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 a month because like people would pay you on retainer for SEO and stuff like that. And you're like, it's amazing because like one day you're making $30,000 a month, and then the next day like two people fire you and you're back down to like 15, and it's like depressing because you don't know how to act. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not even making $5,000 a month, and he's complaining about this. Like, and you were young. This was like 24 years old, 23 years old. Like, how old were you in 2017?
25.
Yeah, so you were still quite young, and I was enamored by like the amount of revenue that you were able to generate from all these different sources. And it seemed like you figured out a system at such a young age for generating cash. But what made you want to start another business? Because I feel like for me, looking back, Revita was great. It was making a lot of money. It was a family business. There's a lot of other people involved. I knew that the business would grow and be successful, but it never, in my head at least, it never would amount to what I wanted my life to be. Right. And I remember before we even started Hush, the conversations that we would have, you were doing well. Like I was not. You were doing well. What triggered inside of you to, you know what? And first of all, not just another business, a completely different business, a different world. Online, yes, but it's a different world. What happened inside of you where that even became something you'd be interested in?
You talking about starting Hush?
Yeah, but before we started, because, I was pestering you for a while. Maybe that was it. I was on you for a while, sending you crickets. I was sending you Amazon listings. Like, I was on you because I knew, one, that I couldn't do it alone, and two, that like I didn't have any of the expertise that you had. But you could have easily at any point before we started Hush, because once we started Hush, there was momentum. But before we started Hush, you could have at any point been like, yo, Aaron, like I'm already making all this money. I didn't have that money. You were super successful. You had a thing that was working. It wasn't like your business was going backwards. What inside of you said, you know what, I'm gonna try this as well?
Just hearing you explain like that, I think I realized the answer for the first time. I think we realize when we just can't take something further. And so even when I started the software company Scope Leads, I wasn't doing as many clients because I couldn't scale that anymore. I'm like, okay. So that started to die off. But then the software was doing very well. I was also selling these courses on the side from other people's, like an affiliate style. And then at one point, you know, the idea for Hush came up, and I thought, like, not only do I need to scratch this itch, but maybe I should take a step back and see, like, what am I going to do for the next, 5 to 10 years? Am I going to be just working in software? Is it scaling fast enough? And so I think I realized that I'm not the person that's going to be able to scale that fast enough, and potentially selling it would be better, and starting something that has more potential. So, and it's the same thing that kind of with Hush, like, we kind of realized that the only way we're going to grow is if we partner with a very large company. And so I think I just realized it was time.
That's a very interesting thing to say. And I think that's the same to be said about like Revita and the family business. Is like, there's a certain point where you realize where I see my life going and where I see this business going seems to be in opposite directions. And that doesn't mean the business was bad. I mean, you could have stayed on with Scope and built Scope, and I mean, you ended up selling it. So you still had the exit there, but it was, what is also said to be true is that business eventually suffered because of, Hush and the time and the attention that it required. But that was a conscious decision that you made. And one that, again, it ended nice in hindsight, but could have went really the other way. And I remember when we were starting out, and, I dropped out of school because of you. I don't know if most people don't even know that, I was, figuring out whether I should do school, shouldn't do school. And Lior was like, dude, just drop out. And I was like, well, what's the plan B? Do you remember what you said the plan B was?
Work at Walmart?
Yeah. He's like, dude, worst case, you just go to Walmart, work for a year, save up money, start another business. And I would tell that to people. They'd be like, what's your plan B? I was literally 21 years old. I'd be like, what do you mean? Walmart will for sure hire me.
Well, school, you're definitely losing money. Walmart, at least you're making
a little bit of money, right? Like, at least you're getting paid, And it was so true though, because sometimes you just need that story that, like, you're going to do it anyways. You don't actually want to work on Walmart. You don't see that, but like, it kind of shuts people up in your mind. But I remember there's a very pivotal conversation before Hush started. So we're going to get into Hush, and people want to know about that. They want to know the ins and outs. They've heard me tell the story 100 times. You never talk about it. So I feel like there's going to be a lot there. But what people don't really know was that I was sending you like crazy things all the time. And it wasn't until you sent me the weighted blanket where like things started to click. Like, I would send you Amazon listings like every single day, and I would tell you about my friend Austin and like all this stuff. And you would like hit me back with like 1 or 2 lines and like good old Lior fashion, like not enough searches, or like products not kosher. Like, you would say these things and it would just be dead. But it wasn't until you sent me, I think it was either a Kickstarter or a listing of a weighted blanket saying, have you seen these? And what about the weighted blanket to you? Because once I realized that you were excited about something, I was like, I can bring the heat. But what something about, like, what in the world happened that a weighted blanket finally struck a chord with you, when literally I probably sent you 100 products that you just didn't give a shit about?
I wish I had a better answer, but I think it was just everything, all the boxes were checked, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a perfect price point, because a blanket on its own could be like $30, $40, $50, but this was like hundreds. So there was something unique about it. I knew the costs were low. I knew it wouldn't be a huge, package to ship, even though they're heavy. And there was still a market for it because it was very, very fresh. So it was something I can get excited about, something that I knew probably not a fad because it had a health angle. And yet, I just wanted to tackle it. It was like that itch I was talking about.
Yeah, and I remember that night I was like, tomorrow we're gonna have breakfast, and we went to France. You remember France? And then the whole time I was like, all right, we gotta do this. I gotta convince this guy. I gotta convince him. We gotta do it. But like, looking back, in my head, I'm like, wow, I convinced him, but I didn't actually convince you. Like, you were already like down to build this company from the get-go. And my question to this is either, you told me this story, and they'll probably listen to this, but I forget who it was, whether it was Lewis or Uri, like one of the guys, you know, later on, as Hush was already, like I think doing 20 million bucks, they hit you up and they said, why didn't you do this with me? Is that true? And talk about that. Like, why did you, you know, believe in, and knowing, like, I had experience in product and selling and all that, but I did nothing online really prior. Why did you say, you know, I'm going to build this with Aaron, and not, you had friends who were literally we hired them actually, but they were in the space.
Wow. Well, you were pretty convincing.
Yeah.
You said something to me actually that I'll never forget. You said, you're not going to do this without me. And you didn't mean like, I'm not going to go and do it. You meant you're not going to go and do it and continue to do it and put the energy in it because it's just an idea for you right now and you're busy with all these other things. And you were also busy, but you weren't that busy. Like you were looking for something that was like your own thing, because your family business, let's be real, like wasn't really yours.
Right.
And so I could tell that you were hungry for that. I can tell that you were excited to do something with me so that you'd follow. And I remember asking you like, well, what skills do you have? What do you bring to the table? You're like, oh, I designed some bags in China for the store. So I know how to deal with China. I'm like, oh, this guy speaks Chinese. Like, you know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He has the contacts for the bags. Like, we really need the bags. We need to know how to design the boxes for this product. And then when we started building, I'm like, wow. So I'm gonna have to teach him more than I thought. So not to put you down. No, you did great.
No, it's true. It's true. I'll never. Listen. I've learned now. You know, one is I can get 75% good at pretty much everything. I like 100%, very, very rare, but I can get 75% good. So you would like teach me, and I would literally I'll never forget. I would go. Most people don't know this. I talk about it a lot, but they don't know this. Like, we would literally, like, you would work in Scope in the morning. I would go to like Mississauga. I'd open up a store like, I don't know, 6 a.m. till like 2 or 3, and then we would meet up at like 5, because you would have Jeff come and like do a workout with you. And you were like the most dialed. You had like a chef, like she would like count your macros on an Excel. Like, I was like, this guy's an animal, you know? And I'm like showing up at 5 o'clock, and we would work, and I would sit there and I would literally look at you and I'd be like, all right, what do I got to do? And you'd be like, all right, we need to rank on SEO. So write a blog post about this. I'm a horrible writer, but I was like, fuck it, I got to do what I got to do. And I would just like, this is before GPT. Now it's so much easier. You know, I would sit there and I'd write a blog post, or I'd sit there and I would, you know, respond to all the customer service requests or whatever it was. But looking back, we kind of did everything we had to do. Like, I'll never forget us editing our first video in my apartment with like the 2 girls that like lived in the building. I was like, you guys want to come do a photo shoot? Like, with a camera that you had with no lighting. Actually, we just used like, I don't even know, like, looking back. The party room. Yeah. And we sit there all night editing a video, and the scrappiness. But what I will say is, like, all I really like did, and people think this is minimizing, but I think it's a big deal, was like just the momentum. Right? Like, it's so easy to like, we sat there for, dude, hours editing a video. Hours. No one is willing to do that right now. You know, any founders are just like, oh, I can't do it.
No, for young kids, they probably think it's easy, like whip up a site, and it probably is easy. You know, ChatGPT, the whole thing, get some AI software, whatever it is. So many templates now to build a website. Back then we had to like
free theme
scratch. Yeah. And it might be up in a day. You know, great, you have a business, but like, there's no essence to that. There's no grind, so it just kind of falls off quickly. I think we put so much time into it that we had to stick with it, which is why I said after the first container comes, you know, if it doesn't do well, we're going to stand on the street corner and just sell it in a blanket.
That's true. We say it all the time. We said that was, well, there's 2 parts that I don't want to gloss over, because we'll get into this stuff. Like, you know, we made money, and we'll get into that, guys. Okay, I promise. But the beginning is it's so crucial, because most people don't even get out of the idea stage, and then they get out of the idea stage and maybe web a website. It doesn't quite work. We did like 2 or 3 things that were huge. One thing I want to bring up that most people don't know is our first order was like $80,000, I remember. And I didn't have the money. And looking back, most people would have been like, okay, we need $80,000 to start this business. we're going to be 50-50 partners, which we were. You got to give me $40,000. I'm going to give you $40,000. We're going to go together and whatever. And if there was a case where it's like, oh, I only have 10,000 and you have to put in 70, then we'll adjust the shares accordingly. And you had to make this decision. I couldn't have made that decision for you. You essentially agreed to let me pay you back over, I don't even know how many months it was. Let's say within a year, right?
No interest.
No interest. And you fronted it, trusting obviously that I would pay you back, which was big. Trust is huge. And I did pay you back. But looking back, if it would have went any other way, one, A, I wouldn't have paid you back. B, you would have been like, hey, I put up more money, so I need more equity. In my opinion, the business would never have been what it would have been. It would have just been, that would have been the start of the snowball falling down the hill. We only met a year before that. What made you feel comfortable enough to be like, yeah, he says he'll pay me back? Like, we didn't sign anything. We didn't like get a lawyer involved. I literally said, dude, I'll pay you back. Like, yeah, I'll pay you back. And I did. But that's a huge testament to put up a lot of your capital at the time. We weren't millionaires, or at least I wasn't, to put up a lot of money and take that chance on a product we haven't even sold yet. This was still like an idea.
I think I saw that. I mean, you weren't the Aaron that you are today. I think I saw that you wanted to be a part of like the whole marketing scene and the whole e-commerce world, which I wasn't even a part of yet, but you wanted a piece of that. And I don't think you would have given it up. I just saw that, like,
yeah, no,
for your reputation and just to be a part of that, you would have paid even if business was losing. So I trusted you.
That's a crazy thing. Yeah, I trusted it. It'll all work out. So we capitalized the business, and one thing I think we did so well is we celebrated every sale. It's a really big thing. Oftentimes now, whether it's in the Founders Club or just talking to founders, and you see this, like, they have like a $10 million business, and it's like, oh, it's not a $15 million business. And it's like, people forget, like, we made literally one sale and it was like a big deal. I still have the video on my phone. We made 3 sales, and we had a crazy, like, Oreo. We made an Oreo ice cream cake. We went down to Fresh. We got a whole dinner. We lost money on the dinner we had just to celebrate the 3 sales. What do you think that was? Do you think that was just us being kids and having fun? Or do you think that deep down we knew we were onto something?
I think it's validation. Growing up, reading the 4-Hour Work Week, validate your business idea. And I've made money in sales and in so many other mediums, but never like with a storefront where it's a stranger you don't know that's buying something. Right? When you're selling software or you're selling anything else, it's B2B, like, who you're talking to, right? Especially with clients. But this is a customer, and you had experience with that, but maybe not online. We don't even know what she looked like, right? We know her name, we know what she looked like. So someone took a risk on us with a product we didn't even have in our hands. So that was a huge validation, and we also worked months towards it. So I think that combination was like, not only we have something to celebrate, but like, this shows that someone out there believes in our product, in our brand enough to take a risk on the internet when e-commerce wasn't like the biggest thing. It was pretty big, but it was still a risk, especially the way our site looked. Right? So it was a huge validation. And then the next day we got 2 sales, and then the day after that, 3 sales. So it was just like an amazing streak of like, wow, I think we're onto something here.
We started the business in January 2018. We have a crazy first 3-4 months, like 20K, 30K, 50K. It was unbelievable. And, I tell this story often, but we never get to hear your side of it. The summer hits, we make no money. Like, I think it was less than 20 sales in July or something like that. It was horrible. And you didn't want to continue the business. You're like, yo, I'm making way more money with my other stuff. What was going through your head, and why'd you let me convince you out of it?
I think it's like I said earlier, there's a stage in every business or every entrepreneur's life where they realize, can I take this further? And maybe it's me like giving up too early, and thank God you didn't let me give up. but I just saw something that was like, oh wait, we thought it was doing well, but it was seasonal. So we will do well, but only in the winter months. And so I was ready to just make it a seasonal business or just sell the rest of the inventory, have it on the side, but not like put effort into it, right? Effort means trying to solve that problem and really figure it out. And I'm usually pretty good at figuring out problems, and there wasn't a solution coming to me. And so it wasn't until Hush Iced and the Kickstarter idea that really made me realize, okay, this has potential. Here's another validation.
One thing that I actually never tell people. So if you're listening to this is the first time I'm actually telling people, was I didn't actually convince you out of it. You convinced yourself out of it, because I was kind of like, let's stay the course. And you said, you know what? The only way I'm going to continue doing this is if we do a Kickstarter, because that's exciting and we can blow it up and it'll be huge.
I just realized now that if we just launched the summer product, it would have just stayed pretty like stagnant, maybe grew it a little bit. But the fact that there was a Kickstarter and we raised $1.5 million in like 30 to 60 days showed us that not only is that a solution to the problem of seasonality, but it's also an indication that the business could be massive. And so that is like jumping from level 1 to like level 5 and in the span of like 2 months. And so that showed us that we can grow bigger. And that, I think that really was a tipping point in realizing like how big this could be.
I think that was a big tipping point. I'll never forget the night before the Kickstarter. So we launched, for those listening, we launched the world's first cooling weighted blanket, did $1.5 million and throughout the campaign. So it was like, we did Kickstarter, Indiegogo. It was, I think it was like over 8,000 backers, like all over the world, multiple countries. We ended up doing another like $250,000 in sheets that we never made before or after. And it was a crazy whirlwind. And the night before the Kickstarter, I remember I came to sleep over because we wanted to like press the button and do the launch. And looking back, I remember that I was telling, like you actually told me this. You're like, go message every single person you know to buy tomorrow morning. And I would like sit there and I texted every single person. And my cousin texted me back. He's like, well, what is this? I'm like, just tomorrow morning, go, you buy it. I don't even know how. I never bought anything on Kickstarter in my life. And my mom like had a ship bought dinner and I made everyone buy. Like I was just getting people to buy. And my cousin said something to me that like I honestly only remembering right now. So this is like kind of off the cuff. And he said, who like what, where did this come from? What? And I was like, no, like here's the thing. It's like Kickstarter, you know, like he doesn't charge your card till after the campaign. You're just committing to it. It's a pledge. And I was like just ripping it to him, you know? And like a month before that, I had no clue what Kickstarter was. And he's like, who told you all this? I was like, oh, Lior. Like Lior, you know, explained this whole opportunity to me. And something that I think that we specifically had that a lot of entrepreneurs and partnerships don't have is I had unwavering belief in the stuff that came out of your mouth. And like, doesn't mean it was always right, and vice versa. Like sometimes you would know, you'd be like, oh, like Aaron's just literally talking shit right now, but I'm still going to ride with it.
I think I'm still the only person that knows. You and your mom.
You and my mom. But like, it's magic, you know? Because there'd be sometimes, and this happens so much in partnership, and this is why, like, again, it worked so, like, just so powerfully well. We were able to scale so fast, is because even in times where we had doubts about, and I don't even know if we had these conversations, it was just a very natural thing where I'd be like, yo, this is it. Like, if this is what he says is going to be the solution, then this is going to be the solution.
Too much credit.
Well, it goes both ways, because we have a very famous text that we would send to each other. You remember what it was?
No sales?
No sales. So we would literally text each other pretty much every morning or every night, you know, at random times. And we'd be like, no sales, regardless of how many sales there were. And whoever sent the text, it was like an unwritten rule. And this is so important that I want everyone to actually listen to this. This is so crucial. It was an unwritten rule that whoever sent the text, the other person had to respond with a reason why they're wrong. It was like an unwritten rule.
Right. We had to back each other up.
So if I was like feeling kind of down on the business and I'd be like, yo, there's no sales, you'd be like, dude, what are you talking about? Tomorrow's the email. Like tomorrow morning the email goes out, we'll make it back. Or like, dude, we're up 40% this month. What are you talking about? And I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And vice versa. You'd be like, dude, there's no sales. They're like, what are you talking about? Like the pill's launching tomorrow. We're going to make our money back. Or have you seen the ROAS? And it's like an unwritten rule, but a superpower, because the likelihood that in any partnership that both of you are going to feel the exact same about the business all the time, it's virtually zero. We had a lot of these natural things that we never actually spoke about. We never sat down and said, okay, yo, from now on, if I'm feeling down, this is my code word. It's just, we did it naturally. And it was, looking back, one of the most powerful things that allowed us to grow so quickly.
Yeah, the truth is I was probably also just as scared when you sent me that.
Me too.
But I realized I have to be there for you, because if you get freaked out, then I'm going to keep freaking out. And then that's not a good scenario. So I think it was just unwritten that like, we have to make the other person feel good. Otherwise they're not going to be productive today. We're going to go down this whirlwind.
And riding decisions without penalty is something that I preach about so often. And it was like, again, another unwritten rule we had is like, I would fire someone and might have been, we shouldn't have fired them. Or, you would yell at an agency and, they would email me and be like, I'm not working with Lior anymore, and I could have easily been, and I see this happen all the time. I could have easily responded. And this happens early in businesses. Why? Because we basically shared an email. Like, there was not an email that Lior wasn't on, and there was not an email that Aaron wasn't on. And that's how every startup is. It just is what it is. There's so many times where partners, agencies, contractors, employees will go to the person that they feel most comfortable with. It happened all the time. People will go to you for certain things. They come to me for certain things. And what happens is they'll use it as a point of leverage to be like, oh, you know what? Every time I go to Lior or every time I go to Aaron, he hits me with this response. I'm coming to you for it. And I see it so often that the other person will then cave, and there'll be times where I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, Lior just literally didn't want to listen to you. Like, sometimes you just wouldn't want to listen to someone, but I would still I would back it up regardless. And it's a superpower that we had. Again, another one of those things that just allowed us to grow so fast. So what would you say, looking back, was the reason for that? Or were we just lucky that it just fucking worked?
We just knew, that what the other person's strength was. And it was also another unwritten rule. And if you can find a partner that knows that, then you're golden. Like, there were some things I wouldn't respond to because I knew that you were probably had it open on your computer right beside me,
right,
already responding to, because that was like your area. And so many times people asked us, what do you do in the business? What does Aaron do? Like, how do you separate it? And we had never had a good answer for them. And I think that's so different than, I don't even have advice for people. Like, just, I would say get someone who has a skill that you don't have, but we just answered all the same emails, did all the same meetings, all the same stuff. And it just worked out that way.
And there was also like early stage founders are so quick to separate. So quick to, I do this, you do that. It happens so often. And there's like something to be said about that, right? Like, you get efficiencies. We were like on every single meeting together.
Yeah.
And like, if even looking, I wouldn't have changed it. Like, it needed to happen. I don't even know why.
Right. I saw a clip yesterday about someone asked Elon Musk's partner, like, how is he so good at what he does? And he answered, he is very involved in every major problem in the business. So he's just solving huge problems day in, day out, every week, one major problem. So like, at the end of the year, you have like 52 problems that are just solved. And that's what makes the business go faster. But if you separate, and then you only have to get together once a day or once a week and say, hey, this is what I did, this is what you did, like, you're not going fast enough. You need to be involved with as much as you can. Not really micromanage, just know. Even when you were in the meetings that were like very technical and or like SEO related, you were just like spacing out. I saw you clicking, whatever, but you caught keywords, you understood, and you were able to also negotiate. So it just, I think it's important to be involved in that sense.
Yeah, it was also a tremendous amount of good cop, bad cop. Like, I would not say anything all meeting, and you would like text me, be like, all right, now the price is, so listen. I'd be like, all right, what's the price? And the guy would give me with the price. I'd be like, and that's huge. So now we launch the business. We go through a terrible summer. We come up with a Kickstarter. We launched the Kickstarter in 2019. But before that, we do something that I still do 7 years later, which is, I remember New Year's 2019. I message you. I'm like, so what are we doing? And you say, oh, well, we're just going to sit here and do goal setting. And I was like, I already made the goals for the year. And you're like, send me your goals. And I realized in that moment, I'm like, I'm not setting in my goals. I'm not setting in my goals. So you're like, why don't you come over? We'll do a dinner. We'll plan goals. And I literally thought I was going to come to your house. We were going to like get a whiteboard and like write down a couple numbers. And you then present a goal setting workshop that I use, and I've added things to it, whatever, but it's still a framework that I've used ever since. And for years, we made a joke that whatever we write down happens. And we were right. It literally happens. Where did you get that from? Like, there's no other human that I knew at 23 years old that said, hey, let's spend New Year's Eve together writing our goals. And we literally wrote them until like 2, 3 a.m. that day. And it, in my opinion, it was the catalyst that took us from a $700,000 business to a $10 million business.
I think the most impactful thing to me when I was in a new community, or I'm sure you guys do this as well, or in a new course, wasn't the nuggets of like how to do what they're just telling you to do. It wasn't like, okay, this is how you get clients, this is how you, whatever it is. It was the mindset portion. It was, here's actually what you need, not what you bought. You need to be reprogrammed on what exactly you're getting into and how you're going to be a better human, how you're going to overcome your fear of sales. And so one of the courses I was originally in, my first mentor, Sam Ovens, he had this method of pretty much planning out the whole year and working on your mindset. And so I just adapted it and said, let's do it on New Year's, and let's plan it out that way. So I'm forever grateful for that. I think it really helped us kick our butts into gear.
There was one thing I made you do, I think that was 2019, which at first I don't think you agreed with, or maybe I don't think you ever agreed with, actually. Well, I was like, we're going to convert your second bedroom into an office, and I'm going to be on one side and you're going to be on the other side. We're going to have a whiteboard. And you're like, why do we need a whiteboard? We have our computers. I was like, we need a whiteboard. And you were kind of right. We used it once just to write down our numbers, and we never used it again. But, you know, it was one of those things that you didn't fully like agree with. Didn't think we needed, like we could just use our computers anywhere. But you kind of let me do it. And looking back, I think one of the most powerful things were when we would just like lock ourselves in that second bedroom and put in like crazy shifts, like insane shifts.
Yeah, I think we should talk about the shifts.
What do you want to talk about the shifts?
I think we should talk about whether or not we still need those. Like looking back, do you think that it would have done just as well with working crazy hours?
No, absolutely not. I think there's a part of me that now more mature would have hired different people and did different deals.
We were so scared to hire.
Every
hire means...
Dude, we were broke.
Yeah.
So people forget we were broke. We thought we were rich. We would go to a Raptors game one time, and I remember it was $346 for opening night, Kawhi Leonard. And we panicked, and we're like, on the Hush cards? Could we put this on the Visa? Like, is there enough? Yeah, like we were broke. People forget that literally the Kickstarter thing, I would e-transfer from our accounts into the credit card to fund the ads.
Yeah.
We were broke. And the thought of paying someone else to do something was insane. And looking back, we weren't mature enough to realize that yet. So yeah, we had to grind it out because we played every single role. We were customer service. We were product dev. We would wake up at 10 o'clock at night, call China. There was no other way.
But if you did it again now,
I don't think I'm capable of doing that now.
That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I don't have it.
But you think someone starting from scratch should still do that?
Absolutely.
Wow.
You don't?
I guess you're right. Knowing what I know now is the reason why I would say differently. But if you're just starting out, especially if you're young and you haven't really had a business before, you need to feel the pain of every single role. And you need to deeply understand what your customers want, what they need. And the only way to do that is to talk to them on the front lines. And so we were basically our customer service for almost like
For everything.
6-7 months.
I would call the abandoned carts, and remember they would freak out and they would hate us. But you know, one of the previous guests on the podcast, she mentioned something really crucial, which is what you're touching on right now. Now that I know what I know, I wouldn't have done what I did, which is why I'm choosing a community business, because I've never done one before. I have no idea the shit that's coming my way, and it's probably going to suck. And in years from now, I'll call back and I can't believe I had to do this, right? But the ignorance is bliss, right? And on the other side of that, the same thing is to be said as when we were starting out. Like, we didn't know that our warehouse can't ship internationally. We didn't know. This is one thing people don't know. We didn't even know what a container of blankets looked like until 17 of them were on a boat to fulfill orders internationally. I still think you owe VAT in the Netherlands. Like, what is looking back, I would not have done it any other way. There was no other way. There were what would you actually have done differently sitting there on our second year, 2019? We've already made 4x. By March of our second year, we already 4x'd the previous year. What would you have done differently?
I think that's the thing. Even if you take these mentors and courses and whatnot, you still have to experience it to know what exactly they're warning you about, right? And then each business has its own struggles and its own flavor and its own, you know, method of doing things that, like, you just don't know until you try.
I send you an Instagram story from Michelle Romano, March 2019, saying you want to do the Dragon's Den. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And but I remember, I don't know if you recall this. You were a little bit hesitant because you're like, wait a second, like, I'm already a successful entrepreneur. I'm gonna go on this show. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah, you were like it was kind of like we might get chewed up here. And
right, the embarrassment,
and I don't know if we tell this story enough, but so we you know, long story short, we apply for the show, we go on. Do you remember the day of the den? The first time?
The day or the second day?
The first, well, the story of the first day.
Of course.
Well, you gonna tell it?
You want me to tell it?
Yeah.
Well, what I do remember is you had a beautiful spray tent, and I showed up without one.
Yes.
So right away, I'm like, today's not the day. Something needs to happen for this not to happen. And so we're sitting there waiting. I'm like practicing my pitch. You're practicing. I'm like cursing you out because you look way better than I do with your spray tan. And we're waiting there for hours. And the producer comes into the room and says, yeah, today's not the day. I'm like, what happened? Oh, the cameraman fell off of his like high chair thing and cut his head open. He's in the hospital. Whoa. Right. And she said, you need to come back. And so I'm like, great, I can get a spray tan.
Yeah. And I didn't even know the next day you came, you were like all sprayed. Yeah. I was like, what? You're like, what do you mean? I got one.
Yeah, you should put the before and after picture up. I think that helped a lot. We were like super ready. Another thing is, yeah, we were just super ready. We were like, it's like when you study for a test and then you go to sleep and like the next day it's just like in your brain. So we just crushed that pitch.
Yeah, we cared and it resonated. Our second year, we do over $10 million. And at this point, we've hired like one salesperson, one person to help us with like social and partnerships. And we rent out the second bedroom on the second floor, or one bedroom on the second floor of our building. So I lived on the 22nd floor, Lior lived on the 19th floor, and then we had a one bedroom apartment that we converted to an office on the second floor.
Without the building knowing.
We had to deal with the landlord. Probably one of the best strategic moves of all time, looking back. Like, we had an office in our building. I would literally, with the flip-flops, take an espresso from my, like, and go downstairs. It was what a good move. But that was really foundational in Hush, looking back. Like, that office cultivated just like some of the longest, deepest nights of work. Like, I still get Snapchat memories at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., Black Friday, having a bunch of people in there, sales team. Like, talk to me about, like, and you're the opposite of this. So I want you to talk to this. You're the type of guy that like let me stay at home with my laptop and I'll get a ton of work done. But looking back, there was so much power in all of us being together.
I think the power, like there's still nothing that beats in person.
Nothing.
It wasn't even that like we got more done, because I definitely could have gotten more done alone. I probably would have worked less because I would have been distracted by, you know, all the distractions. But seeing you on the other side, seeing you still working, and I knew you weren't really working. You were like,
no, sometimes I was just staying just because I knew you had something to get done.
And then you thought I was working, so we're like, okay, now we have to outwork each other.
So who's gonna go home first?
It's terrible culture.
Oh, it's so true. We would stay sometimes till 11 and just like play music.
But even if we weren't working, it was having that free time to think, and then just looking over you and being like, why don't we launch like a pillow? And you would look over at me and just say like, why don't we start running ads on that platform? And it just, that doesn't happen when you're online. Like, sure, a thought can pop up in your head, but you're not going to text that to someone you work with. Like, it's just annoying. Mm-hmm. But we had a stream of consciousness that came out of both of our brains, and it just came out and came out and came out. And it was like the ultimate brainstorm all day long. And it was just like our code language.
We just moved so much faster. That's like, it was unparalleled speed. It was,
we felt it.
When you missed something, I would catch it, vice versa.
It was a period of 6 months when I was living in Florida and you were still in Toronto, and we felt that was also not there. It was impossible to have
impossible to create that. The next 2 years become insane. We go through COVID. The business goes from a 10 to a $20 million business to a $40 million business. And we make the most insane decision looking back to move to Mexico and get a place in Mexico, almost as a testament to show that we knew we needed to be in person. And I think like those, I don't know if it was like 6 months was like so crucial, because we sold our business out of a villa in Tulum. And knowing that, you know, people say, did you know we were going to sell our business? I say that we knew we were going to sell from the very beginning. Is that true for you?
I think early on, we realized, you forgot to tell the Ferrari story sitting on my couch. So that's when we realized, like, you know, there's something there. Basically, Aaron and I would be, we'd be sitting on our couch, and I look over at him, and he has Auto Trader open, and he's looking at Ferraris. And I'm like, what's going on, dude? It's only our second month. He's like, yeah, but we made like, what was it, like 30K? I think the first month was 15.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. So he's like, okay, so when we hit 80K, we're both getting Ferraris.
Yeah, we can afford $2,300 a month in leases.
I think it was that big thinking. So the next big thinking in our first year, or the start of our second year, was, what's even bigger than that? Bigger than that is exiting the whole business and you know, getting that lump sum. So I think we definitely entertained it early on. We knew that we had a few years in the tank to grow it, but it was always just swarming in the back of our heads. And even when we first started speaking to our potential acquirers, it still wasn't an idea of selling. It was more like, let's just meet, right? They kind of convinced us to sell.
I always wanted to sell. I think you were always like, we can grow this if we need to. Like you were, in the back of my head, I was like, we need to sell this thing. And you were always like, we can sell it, we can grow it, we can keep it. And I think that was important, because I think if we were both desperate, I wasn't desperate, but if we were both leaning like, we need to sell, it might have not even happened.
Very true. Something about the organic nature of like it just happening and just going into it is what made it work. I think if we just went to market and like focused on that only, I think the business would have suffered.
What mistake do you think we made during that time of the business? The business is, you know, around the $40 million mark. We're looking to sell it. What is something you think we didn't do right?
I think the mistake was thinking that the money was already in our pockets and acting like it and getting comfortable and essentially doing what I just said, which is like, instead of going to multiple acquirers, it's going to one, but thinking you already closed them. And so not growing the business as much as it could in case that one didn't work out, and not, you still have a business to run. And so I think that took so much time away that we should have been focusing on growing the business.
Anything about the journey, what most people don't know is, this was in and out in 48 months, which is a very toxic thing to happen to a young entrepreneur, because you think that's the normal. That's not normal at all. Like, no one does that, really. Granted, we deserved it because we grew it quickly. What is one thing about the journey that you wish we did differently, that, now knowing what you know, you maybe would have gone about it a different way?
Probably more personal time and family time. I think all those hours spent together, it led to more brainstorming, but we could have condensed that, but if we had more of like a structure to our lives and routine. But at the same time, we probably wouldn't have wanted that. And even now, if you start a business, you're going to want to just keep working and working. So it's one of those things that, like, you think theoretically would be amazing, but who knows how hard it is to actually strike a balance there.
You think we would have had the same outcome if you spent more time, in this case, with yourself?
Even now, and like things that I work on, it's even when I'm spending family time, it's still going on in my mind. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, you think that's even possible?
So you shut it off as much as you can, but you're still solving problems. When there's a problem to solve, your brain just works as hard as it can to solve that problem. So I'm getting better at shutting it off, but I think it would have been successful because we would still be thinking about it. So what would have suffered is the personal and family time.
Right. Also, the one thing that I found very interesting is I believe that we always have to like recreate ourselves, like we're always recreating ourselves over and over and over and over again. When I met you, your calendar was insane. In fact, like, really modeled how I operate even now around it. Like, you had your showers booked, you had your cleaning ladies booked, your dog walker, who's cooking your meals, the macros, you had every single hour of your day dialed. So yeah, maybe looking back, you could have shifted some things around, so you spent more time doing one thing over the other. You're not doing that anymore.
No.
Is the reason you're not doing that anymore because you don't have the same drive, or you think that is no longer needed or was never needed?
Yeah, it's not needed. I tested it.
So what do you mean you tested it?
Like, just stop doing it. And I was just as happy, just as productive, and all this biohacking stuff that people do and spend 4 hours meditating, and it's just, I don't need it. And even that was a test, right? Let's just try it for a week. I even did a full year of not doing the goal planning thing, and noticed that, like, it was okay, right? So I realized most of it is in my head anyways. It's not about how much time I'm setting aside and looking at a calendar and saying, oh, I have a checklist and it's successful because I checked it off. Not necessarily. It's in your mind and your mindset.
Yeah, but what makes you feel good now?
Because I still have that mind and that mindset.
Yeah, but a lot of around the goal setting and having like the checklist, even the art of checking something off the list has a dopamine effect. If you don't have the checklist and you don't have the Shopify ka-chings every 5 seconds because, we sold the business, where are you getting the dopamine from?
I don't know if you remember, but I didn't have the ka-chings on my phone.
Only because there was too many of them. Only because there was too many.
I was sitting beside you. You had the ka-chings.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same with email. Like, email also gives you dopamine every time you get a notification, but I turned that off like almost 10 years ago. No email notifications on my phone whatsoever. I just believe that when you want it, you can get it. You can always open the app, but I just like in my brain schedule time around, okay, I'm going to go and check the sales now. I'm going to go and check the email. I was only checking it twice a day at that point. And so it was a rigid schedule, but without being too rigid. You know what I mean? If it was written down, I feel like I just have too much anxiety about, like, I need to do this every day. It doesn't really work like that for me.
Do you think that the younger Lior drive, because you sold the business, we made a bunch of money, is still there? Or do you feel like that version of Lior is over?
I don't think the drive's ever gone. I think it gets activated the same way that it was activated, when the blanket came around and I sent you that link. So you said what got me excited about it. There was something in there. So the next thing that has to activate me has to be pretty big, because you're right. There's a level of like, I don't need to chase every opportunity, even if it's a good one. It has to be like a sick one.
Yeah.
And so the drive is there. I feel it, but it's sort of like, it's in neutral right now.
That's a really good thing. It's like I always got that dog in me, but like I'm not just gonna run at anything. It needs to like really bring out that emotion.
Yeah. And also like, listen, I have a small family now, and I'm not gonna chase every opportunity just for the sake of it. It needs to be something that actually aligns with everything. It aligns with giving me enough of the personal time we spoke about.
Yeah.
It's no longer like just, oh, this sounds good. Let's chase. I'm all about the folks.
That is true. That's a patented Lior word. I would send him a million things and he would just respond, focus. Yeah. I do that to people now because of you. I would like send you like a whole paragraph, all these things, and I found this and I found that, and you would just be like, focus. I'm like, okay, fine. So one thing I want to bring up is the way that you live your life now is not the same way you lived your life 5 years ago. And you texted me something like I think it was like a month ago or 2 months ago. You said, I wish I spent more time studying or spending more time with my family or praying more. And it almost felt, correct me if I'm wrong, it almost felt like there was a little bit of regret. And is that only because of the way you spend your time now, or do you actually regret not spending that time when we were building the business?
It depends what the end goal is. If the end goal is still to make a lot of money and have the same exact story, then we need to have done it the way we did it. There's no other way.
Right.
But now realizing what's more important,
what is more important?
What's more important is the things we mentioned, family time, studying, friends, praying, and wasn't doing much of that in 10 years. So now I need to catch up.
Wow.
But I think that's why I think about it now. Like whatever I do needs to have time for that. So I don't regret. It's just a matter of what's important now.
Two last things here. Okay. I told you we cover a lot in a short time. I talk a lot about values. I tell everyone, values are so important. And Landon and I talk about this a lot. Like, so many people in our lives, they change their values, which I think is okay. You can learn, like, you know what? I gravitate more to this. I gravitate more to that. You've never changed your values. You've had the exact same values since the day that I met you. And I'll never forget, my mom, she's very straight to the point. I remember she never even met you yet. And I was like, I'm starting this blanket business with this Lior guy and, all these things. And she looked at me, she's like, how do you know? Like, you don't even know him. Do it because I had a family business. Or you know your family, right? She's like, you don't even know him yet. And I said, you know what? But I don't need to know him because he's got these values. Like, I don't need to have any trust because I know he's unwavering on his values. Two things to that. Where does it come from? And how do you actually maintain the discipline? Because I know a lot of people, they go through phases, right? I'm one of them. Sometimes I'm up here, I go through phases. I have like underlying values of everything that I like. There's certain lines I won't cross. But you've been the exact same since the day I met you, whatever it is, 7-8 years ago. Where does that come from? And how do you maintain the discipline?
It's a great question. I actually started thinking about that the past 2 weeks because I asked myself the same question. And I think I got lucky with, my parents and my family having instilled great values in me. I think that's where the bulk of it comes from, school, religion, things like that, teachers. But then it also has to do with what would happen if you broke your value? If I broke my value, what would happen, right? Would you be in trouble? Would you be embarrassed? Would you lose your reputation? And so I sort of see it as this like intense lifelong challenge that if I break a value, I am not, the stand-up person that I believe I am, or I'm not going to be as consistent because now someone will see me as different, which may not be a healthy thing. I'm not sure, but these are good values. So it seems to be working. And so I say to myself, like, if you're going to lose your reputation by breaking your value or going against something you believe in even once, then first of all, it's not a value to you. And second, like, what does that make you? And so I think that's the reason why I just can't waver.
No, you don't. You literally don't. And I feel like I've been the one to try to actually make you break a lot of your values, and not in a malicious way, just naturally, right? And you've never ever wavered, never. And I feel like in relationship, whether intimate or not, partnerships, when building business, with working with suppliers, like all of that, when you realize that someone is rooted in their values, it kind of like takes away a lot of the insecurity of like, I don't really know who this person is, but like, oh wait, that person's got really strong values. I can lean on that because they lean on that, right? And the right people will get attracted to you. The last question we're going to ask, and this is my favorite one, right? And I think you're going to have a fantastic response, and I'm putting pressure on you, is what would you say, not to the younger version of yourself, because then you can go to any age. What would you say to the 5-6-year-old version of Lior, if they're in the room right now, sitting down, going about life, and you can share one message with them, what would you say with them, with little Lior?
It has to be 5-6 years old.
Pre-teen version of you, not like the high school Lior, the university Lior, the one starting their business. Like, I'm talking like pre-teen, still in their youth, bouncing around the house.
Wow. And he's for sure going to listen to the advice. Is that the idea?
He might.
What I would say to my 5, 6, 7-year-old self is, you are enough.
Amazing. And that's the truth of every single founder, is a lot of us create the value for others that we want to feel within ourselves. Does the Lior today feel that as their truth?
No, and that's why I would have said it to my younger self.
Right.
And it's not true for everyone. It's true for some people. So I think probably wouldn't have made me as hungry, because I drew from a lot of negative motivation over my life to be successful, or I needed to be successful to prove it to other people, or I needed, because I was living on my own, I needed to prove that dropping out was the correct choice. So it was such a negative motivation. And what is that negative motivation? Is you're not good enough to hack this, to make it work. And so with that message constantly in my head, it did good for me in my life, but with that looming over you, and people don't see that on the outside, they just see success, they see the headlines, they see all that stuff. But I'd rather not have that loom over me and still find a way to be successful with positivity.
The journey of a founder. So what's next, Mr. Lior?
Oh, well, definitely spending more time with the wife, and just had a kid recently. So there's that.
More kids?
More kids on the horizon, hopefully. Yeah. And I think it's time to give back. And so I've been thinking of different ways of doing that. And I think, there's so many opportunities out there, and so many people teaching younger guys how to start, how to scale their business. It's easier now, even though we said that it takes more work. I think it's easier. But at the same time, no one's really helping people on like the bigger decisions, right? How to like sell your business, how to prepare your business for that sort of thing. So that's kind of where like my head's spinning right now. It's how to provide value to people that are in that situation, and there really isn't much out there.
So we can expect to see some form of value-driven content community course teachings for founders that are looking to
sell their business. Yeah. Maybe we'll get you involved too.
100%. This is Well, see, I knew going into this that this could have been a 3-hour episode, but I've structured a lot of the guests in the beginning to potentially have part 1s, part 2s, part 3s, part 4, because of there's just so much there. And I think that's definitely the case here. Any last words that you want to share that we potentially didn't already cover?
Oh, so much. It's definitely a part 2.
Remember I told you? You're like, we only have an hour and a bit. I'm like, we're gonna cover a lot.
You've been blowing smoke up my whatever this whole episode. So I just want to say you're doing awesome with the Founders Club and all that stuff. You and Chris, and so don't forget I can always sniff up the BS.
Yeah.
Only me and your mom know how to.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that this is not BS. This is the real deal. So
that's good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have a good thing going, and yeah, it's very impressive.
Love it.
You don't need me anymore.
That's what you think. Mr. Lior Ohayon on the Founder to Founder podcast. Let's go. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Founder to Founder podcast. And I have one favor, just one favor to ask. It's the only favor I'll ever ask from you. And if you liked what you listened to please like, subscribe, and please just leave a comment. Let us know what you think, how we can make it better. We are all in on delivering value to you. And all we ask in return is that you hit that subscribe. It goes a long way for what we're trying to build here. And as always, we post an episode every single Wednesday. So stay tuned, and thank you for tuning in.